And Paul says, rejoice always. He didn't say rejoice when things go good, rejoice when you're blessed. He says, rejoice always. This is important. Your joy is not based on external factors. Joy is not something that is rooted in things that are external. Joy is internal. So there is the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles. And then you have another holiday that's connected but distinct in its own right. We read about this 8th day that's added to Sukkot. It's known as Shmini Atzeret. Can you say Shmini? Shmini? Like Shini, Mini, Ini, Shmini, Mini, Mo? Ini, Shmini, Mini, Mo? Shmini Atzeret. It means it can be translated different ways, but the primary way it's translated is as the 8th day assembly. We read about this. So on the 15th day of the month, when you have gathered the fruits of the land, you were to keep the feast of Adonai, the feast of the Lord, for 7 days. The first day is the Shabbat, a Sabbath rest, and the 8th day is also a Sabbath rest, a Shabbat rest. That 8th day begins tonight. So from Friday night to Saturday night is the first day, is Shmini Atzeret in Israel, the first day of Shmini Atzeret here outside of Israel. So in Israel, many holidays, they celebrate 2 days. Here, but in Israel, only 1 day. We read about this in Ezra, Nehemiah 8. Ezra read from the scroll of the Torah of God each day from the first to the last day of Sukkot. They celebrated the festival 7 days, and then there was a solemn gathering on the 8th day as prescribed. So then what's the difference between Shmini Atzeret and Sukkot? So Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day assembly, the day after the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles, is a very simple holiday. Sukkot is an elaborate holiday. It was biblically when the temple stood in the days of the second temple, which is the days Yeshua Jesus was in Jerusalem for a portion of that time. Sukkot was the most elaborate of all the biblical festivals. And we'll get into that sometime. But Shmini Atzeret was simple. There were no elaborate rituals. And this is really important to understand in its meaning. There's this parable describing Shmini Atzeret where it's kind of like a king has a great celebration and invites all his subjects and guests far and wide. And they all come to 7 days of feasting. And then on the 8th, then going into the 8th day, the king says to his family and close friends, tarry with me a little bit longer. And let's just enjoy each other's presence. So God, it's a day that God wants us just to relax and enjoy a time of intimate fellowship with him, not with all these things, not with all these elaborate rituals. So the Hebrew word atzeret can be translated as to tarry. So God wants his people to tarry with him an additional day, some additional time without rituals and fair. There's a power of tarrying. Like they were like some of the old translations of the book of Acts, they were tarrying, they were waiting upon the Lord, about tarrying in his presence, tarrying in prayer. That's what Shmini Atzeret reminds us, that if the joy of Sukkot and the blessings of Sukkot are going to be made fully manifest and realized in our lives, then there has to be a time of tarrying where we can just soak it all in and take it all in and let it go deeper in our soul. Just stay with God's saying, stay with me a little longer. It's all about having some quiet family time, enjoying his presence. It can kind of be seen like, did you ever when I've gone on vacation with my family, my 2 boys and everyone, we go out and, when I come back, we've had a great time, but I need a vacation from the vacation. Have you ever needed a vacation from the vacation? That is Shmini Atzeret. Sukkot, you take off. There's some vacation time in there, but it's busy. This is the vacation from the vacation. God just wants us to simply rejoice and tarry with him. And so this is so important to understand and to remember, because what we see going on here is, again, this is Sukkot, Zman Simchateinu, the time of our rejoicing. And we read in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 15, 7 days you will feast to Adonai your God in the place he chooses, because Adonai your God will bless you in all your produce and all the work of your hand, and you will be completely filled with joy. It says, and you will be completely filled with joy. Ach sameach. Ach sameach. You will be completely filled with joy. So there's a general command to rejoice in all the holidays. So the rabbis, though, interpret this verse when it says you will be completely filled with joy as a specifically referring to Shmini Atzeret, which begins tonight. Why do the sages have to emphasize joy on Shmini Atzeret on the 8th day? That's a question that's important to understand. So what we have to understand is this. Perhaps there's a story from the Talmud that will shed some light on it. At the end of Shmini Atzeret, or what happened in the days that the temple stood, the people would go up to the temple and they would look at the smoke that was rising from the altar, the fire that was coming up to consume the sacrifices on the altar. And as the column of smoke rose from the altar, all the people would gaze intently at the smoke to see what direction the wind would come and blow the smoke, because they believed that the direction that the wind came and that the smoke went was meant to communicate the type of harvest that was to come and the type of season of rain that they were to have. If it was a north wind that blew the smoke north, the poor people were happy and the wealthy farmers were sad, because it indicated an early rain season. It meant the farmers would have to sell early for a lower price. If it was a south wind, the poor were sad and the wealthy farmers were happy, because it meant the rain would come and the later rain, and that the farmers could hold their crops till the prices rose. If the rain came early, they had to harvest their crops quickly and sell it quickly for a lower price so that it didn't spoil. If an east wind came, everyone was happy, because it would be good for everyone. It was the perfect balance. And if it was a west wind, all were sad, because it meant that there was a high probability of drought and famine. So people during the Second Temple time would be waiting with anticipation, waiting anxiously. Many probably had anxiety. They were just trying to get to that point to see what would happen. Maybe it would even distract them during it. And so the question is, how would they respond once they saw which direction the wind would actually blow? And that's the reason why the Torah emphasizes to be joyful, especially on Shmini Atzeret. The lesson that it's trying to teach us is that we're called to have joy no matter what. We're called to have joy no matter which way the wind blows. Say with me, I will have joy no matter which way the wind blows in my life. It doesn't make a difference. But many people don't really have joy. They're not seeking joy, they're seeking happiness. And there's a difference between happiness and joy, at least in English. The root of happiness comes from the word hap, which is the same hap as in perhaps or happenstance or happen. Hap means chance, luck, or fortune. So happiness is based on happenstance. Happenstance is a situation or circumstance that happens to happen in our life, theoretically, by chance. So happiness is lost when the wind blows in the wrong direction. Happiness is lost when the wind blows in the opposite direction. But the Bible, the scriptures, doesn't speak of happiness. It speaks of joy, of simcha. Can you say simcha? Simcha, I get the cha in there. That's joy. Joy is meant to be deep and abiding. It's a deep and abiding joy. And it's rooted in love, faith, and hope in the Lord and in his promises. See, when you have faith, hope, and love, it doesn't matter what your situation and circumstances are, because there's going to be, you can have that abiding joy because you know his promises. This is what James 1:2. By the way, there's no James in the Bible. I know there's the book of James. James's name was changed. His name is Yaakov, Jacob. The brother of Yeshua's name is Yaakov, Jacob. Just an aside. It says, consider it all joy, my brethren, James 1:2, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Count it all joy. Friends, even our trials produce blessing in our life. The Apostle Paul, who is also a rabbi, writes this, Philippians 4:3, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. And Paul says, rejoice always. He didn't say rejoice when things go good, rejoice when you're blessed. He says, rejoice always. This is important. Your joy is not based on external factors. Joy is not something that is rooted in things that are external. Joy is internal. So just to clarify, my joy will not be based on external things, but on the internal reality of God's presence in my life. I love it, Christy. Joy is a choice. It's a decision. We can choose to be joyful. We can choose to rejoice. We can choose to serve the Lord with joy and with gladness. It's not based on what life brings you. That's so important in these times of crazy COVID and everything that's going on in the world. Here's the point. You can have joy no matter which way the wind blows. No matter which way the wind blows, I choose joy and not oi. Friends, don't choose the oi, choose to have joy.